Welcome back to the AI Powered Marketing Show, the go-to podcast for small business owners, digital marketers, and entrepreneurs looking to leverage AI and automation to grow smarter, not harder. I'm your host, Keith Bell, and today we're diving deep into the world of AI-driven marketing, content automation, and business strategy with an incredible guest. Joining us today is Deiadora Blanche, the founder and CEO of Deidorable, a marketing agency that helps businesses integrate AI into their marketing, content creation, and lead generation strategies. With a background in website design, digital marketing, and AI-powered business automation, she's worked with major brands like Airbnb and Coursera, helping them streamline their digital growth. So let's get started. Please join me in welcoming Deiadora Blanche to the AI-Powered Marketing Show. Hey, everybody, join me in welcoming to the AI-Powered Marketing Show, Deiadora Blanche. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Keith. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so where are you at in this big, wonderful world of ours?
I am in Columbus, Georgia, which is a little bit about an hour and a half away from Atlanta.
Wow. I love Georgia. I love Atlanta especially. What's the name of it's like the hot spot downtown where you can go, is it the Underground
I
or
don't
the
know. I always go to Little Five Points. That's my
Little
favorite
Five
spot in
Points?
Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking, you know what? I'm thinking of Indianapolis where they have like
Okay.
Union Station
Yeah.
where you can go downtown. So you have a pretty extensive background. Like you did stuff with Airbnb
I did. Yeah.
and is it Coursify or
Coursera. Yeah.
Coursera?
Mm-hmm.
I've watched a lot of Coursera courses. They
Right.
put out great stuff.
Yeah.
Especially some of the classes I've taken on Facebook ads. Great
Nice. Okay.
content.
Cool.
So you started your own, I guess, is it an agency?
I would call it an agency. I'm also pivoting into more of the educational space. And so I'm
Okay.
working on education content and I have been for the last year and a half. So, and then
Yeah,
I
I
also
think,
help clients as well. So,
yeah, as I was telling you before we started here, I just shut my agency down in August because um, with the target audience I have as small business owners, I can't charge them the types of fees that I need to charge, like, $1,500, $2,000 a month,
right. Hmm.
because I have to have a team, and they're the whole reason that. And we'll talk more about this, but the whole reason they're struggling with implementing AI and digital marketing into their company is because it's not a big, it's a big financial investment for them,
Right. Hmm.
and they've got to spend a ton of money on it. But
Yeah.
um, I want to kind of pivot here. The name of your agency is Deidorable.
Yes.
I love that.
Thank you.
It's adorable.
Thank you.
Or what are the kids all saying now? Adorbs.
Adorbs. Right. Yeah.
Adorbs.
Hmm.
Oh my God, that is. So, what led you to start that agency?
That's a great question. I would say that I kind of fell into business consulting naturally after I graduated from college. I went to travel and I was working at a cafe as a barista in Perth, Australia. And the owners of that cafe noticed my observational skills, I guess. And I told them that I had a business admin degree. And so they they asked me if I could make handbooks for them, the managers, and also for their staff. And that's how I started in consulting essentially through observation. Like, what is it that you're doing? How can we improve this? What are you doing in real life to make it better from here? And I've been doing that pretty much ever since.
Now, I see from my research, you got into website design and content creation, and you kind of like took a very holistic, broad approach to it all.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So that was in 2006, my Perth, Australia experience. And then when I came back, as a lot of us know, there was a housing crash in 2008, and it made it very difficult in that I had a job like working as an administrative assistant at UCSD. Um, and did that for a year while I was trying to find like a quote unquote better job, like more of a career position.
Mhm.
And so when that didn't happen after 8 or 9 interviews, and having all of these business owners of small businesses like in Orange County and San Diego reflect back to me that I was very creative and business minded. And so I took that and I was like, how can I actually help businesses? And that's what led me into digital transformation from like 2008 on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. I was watching another, I think it was either a podcast or YouTube video. You talk about AI and um, intelligence
Mhm.
or emotional
Emotional
intelligence.
intelligence. Yeah.
So we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about that more. But
Sure.
one of the things that I always do is I always ask my guests, to share a story.
Hmm.
And we talked a little bit about this before. Share a story of how AI has impacted your business or somebody else. And you had a great story talking about Tiffany. And I'm wondering if you could share that a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So for the past year, I've had a client who is a real estate agent. And she's very prolific in her sales. So she sells over 100 houses a year. So we're not talking about 6 houses, but a dozen houses a month practically. And she wanted to move away from getting those clients from a third party lead source, and actually just get them directly. And so she consulted with me to figure out how do you get them from, instead of using these advertising agencies or other lead sources where you're getting referrals, to setting up your own CRM, your customer relationship management system. If not, you're not familiar with that term. I know you are, but your audience.
No, absolutely. I was just going to say that we're here to educate
Right. Yeah.
both of us.
Yeah. And then your CMS. And your CMS is where you build your website on it, your content management system. And so she didn't have either of those things set up. So there was really no customer journey or way for her to get the clients directly. So she was giving a percentage of her sales or spending advertising money on these third party leads that she was receiving.
Now, both you and I both know the benefit to getting your leads directly
Right.
as opposed to buying them. Why don't you share with my audience why it's so important to um, have that customer value journey that you take people through, and how you build trust and awareness and relationships that way.
Right. Yeah. So your ideal customer journey is going to both be organic. And so that would include things like getting real referrals or word of mouth, or using organic digital strategies, or even, door to door sales that some people do. So it's a more natural approach to business. You can think of it as like more organic networking. And it can be done in a lot of different formats, whatever's authentic to you. And then there's also paid advertising. So you can pay for posting on Instagram or Facebook and use geolocation, or focusing on certain audiences all around the globe. And you're paying for that advertising. Or you can do, obviously, like paid ads, which can be billboards or anything that's in print, etc. Right? So there's lots of strategies you can use for your customer journey, but that's all the building awareness. And that piece was missing for her. So she didn't have anywhere essentially where she was going back and talking to clients that she already had, to see if they were interested in purchasing an investment home, et cetera, or selling after 5 years. And she didn't have anything set up where she was going after new clients. So there was no awareness piece of her customer journey that was either flyers that were being sent out by, in print, or anywhere online where she was sharing regularly. So really what was going on was maybe a post here and there. And when you do that, there's no consistent presence. So you're not really top of mind for your client. So the important part is to set up that customer journey, really starting with the awareness piece so that you're planting those mustard seeds in your potential leads' minds.
I just 2 weeks ago, I had Jake Setterlin on. He runs a LinkedIn ad agency.
Okay.
And one of the things we talked about was how important it is to define your ideal customer,
Mm-hmm.
and have really, really drilled, not just drill down on it, do it once, set it and forget it,
Right.
but constantly go back and revalidate it and reassess it. What role did AI play in Tiffany's situation?
In her case, I really wanted to find a tool that was specifically for real estate agents. And so I looked at a few different platforms and had set up demo appointments with them to see actually what their platform was like and make sure that it was a good fit for that client and that it was also up to date. So, like, were they using AI? And then what aspects were they using AI for? Because we've got generative AI, which you can think of that as like the content creator. So it'll create copy, images, video, or do analytics or create code for you. But then you actually have all sorts of other AI, right? So it's like in a customer relationship management system, a CRM, you can have that actually pulling the data from like who are like this person filled out this form on your website. And then who is that person? What percentage do they get? And machine learning will score that. So you're really looking for tools that actually fit your particular business model. And that's the first step that I did for Tiffany.
Hey, digital marketers, entrepreneurs, and tech enthusiasts. Ready to elevate your AI game? Check out the AI-Powered Marketer newsletter from Keith Bell, host of the AI-Powered Marketing Show. The AI-Powered Marketer newsletter is your go-to resource, packed with actionable insights, cutting-edge tools, and the latest news in AI and digital marketing. Whether you're optimizing sales funnels, exploring new AI strategies, or staying ahead of industry trends, this newsletter has you covered. Don't miss out on the chance to supercharge your marketing efforts. Subscribe now. Just click the link in the show notes to sign up today, and remember, the future of marketing is here and it's powered by AI. See you in the newsletter.
Now, was it this tool? Was it using predictive analytics, sentiment analysis, stuff like that?
Yes.
So for my audience, predictive analytics is what?
Predictive analytics, I would say that is looking at how much your potential lead is going to be converting into a sale. And so for a real estate, like how close are they in their buyer journey or their selling journey? And so I set up a form so that it would collect that data. And then the platform actually translates that into a percentage. And so then when her or her partner who are working with her in her office see that, they can see, oh, this is actually somebody that's at an 87%. So there's your prediction of the potential of that person buying or selling with you in real estate.
Yeah, that lead scoring and looking at I think that you hit the nail on the head with looking at where somebody's at in their buyer journey and scoring that. And the closer somebody is, obviously, to making the decision, the higher the score they're going to get.
Right.
Was she also using it for content generation too, and content creation, or strictly for the CRM side of it?
Well, so now I've actually set up a content operations process that includes content generation. And before I started developing content, though, I got to understand her and her values. So Deidorable is the brand name, actually is at the end, it's spelled with the word rebel, because what we're doing is we're rebelling against the status quo. Like, here's a strategy you could use, but I think it's important to get to know each client on an individual basis. And I use that for prompt engineering. So I want to know what Tiffany's values are. So she loves authenticity, being very personable and down to earth, and then also being very classy and offering a white glove service. So I created brand guidelines first before I ever developed any content or content operations for her content strategy on her website or for her social media.
Yes, that you just mentioned one of my favorite words, prompt engineering.
Right.
Generative AI is only as good
Mhm.
as the prompts that we enter in.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I think that's the biggest frustration for people sometimes is they'll put something in and be like, it's okay, but it's not what I really wanted.
Right.
And they need to understand that they've got to give it context. They've got to have a language and tone. What's their end game? What are they going to get from this?
Mhm.
And are they refining their prompts? So,
Mhm.
I did pick up when I was looking at the name of your business. I guess subconsciously, and this is a good marketer
Thank you.
on your. I said, is it Deidorable? I saw the word rebel in there, and from looking at my research that I've done on you, it kind of fit with your brand and what you're all about.
Yeah.
So now I want to go back and talk about your book, Strategic Laziness.
Okay.
That's a great title.
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
interviewed, actually, my first interview for this show was with a guy named Jesse James Robalewski.
Oh, wow.
And
Nice.
Do you know Jesse
No,
James?
I love that name though.
He's got great name. Well, you should see his studio. When if you go back and look at my first interview,
Okay.
his studio is literally a carnival atmosphere.
Oh,
Like
very
there's
cool.
clowns and all kinds of creepy stuff because he's
Oh, okay.
into creepy stuff.
Okay. The
But
macabre or whatever you call it. Right.
macabre, yeah. But he had a great studio. But he talks about differentiating yourself
Mm.
from for a marketer, that's like,
Right.
the death knell when you become a commodity.
Right.
But your book, Strategic Lazy, I got to get a copy of it now because I'm all about being strategically lazy.
Right. Yes.
So
So
talk to me about that.
yeah, so it's all about, I would say if I was to step back and look at what I wrote, it's all about energy management. So understanding, it's through self-awareness you understand what you really enjoy versus what you don't like, and how to delegate that stuff and to automate other things, and really just to step back and look at your work and then look at your pricing strategy and go, how can I make the biggest bang for your buck? So probably very similar to what you're doing intuitively with pivoting and more into education, right? It's like, how can I access the skills that I have and make a revenue from that? I call it a quantum revenue. Um, it's like multidimensional. It's like you want to make multiple streams of income is one strategy. You want to leverage the skills that you're really good at and focus on those. So it's like loving educational content versus doing it for clients. For example, I know that I'm pivoting away from that. If I have to make one more post, no, I'm just kidding. I'm good
Yeah.
at it, but so it's really just acknowledging and honoring yourself where you're at. And just like we were talking about, your persona and your understanding your ideal client is actually iterative and is experimental. Understanding this about yourself as an entrepreneur, a business owner, a founder, however you identify, is very important, I think. And so it brings that just very simple questions up to your awareness so that you can explore different ways that you can increase your income, but work actually less.
Well, we talked about the ideal customer again, and kind of the benchmark that I used and you can probably relate to this, the benchmark that
Sure.
I would use for the amount of work and education I was going to have to do with my client was when I would ask this question: who is your ideal customer?
Right.
And you probably
No
got
idea.
some of the same. They're like, what? My ideal customer? And they would have no clue who they served,
Uh-huh.
and, I think, and I'm going through it now. Like, I'm really dialing down. Like last year, this past year, I would serve anybody. I was just trying to get out there. This year, I'm drilling down small business entrepreneurs, digital marketers, because and I have an ideal customer
Mhm.
that I've defined.
Right.
But that is so important,
Yeah.
so important.
Mhm.
Now, there's something else I'm going to talk to you about. We mentioned earlier. You talked on another. I don't know if it was a podcast or YouTube
I have both.
channel.
I have a YouTube
I don't know
channel and
if
then I blast it out.
Yeah, I don't know if it was yours or
Okay.
I think maybe it was yours, but you talk about AI and emotional intelligence.
Yes.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So going back to the example that I have of Tiffany, I used emotional intelligence to empathize with her personality and what her values were, and to identify what words that she really resonated with, so that you could call it resonate or attract her ideal clients to her, right? So when you're doing prompt engineering, you want to, in as a content professional, we usually call that like your voice and tone guidelines, but really they're content patterns. So, what phrases do you really enjoy using when you're naturally speaking? What values do you embody, and how can you show that care or support or whatever it's probably going to be a different word for each business, but how do you show that you're showing up and being present and you're really wanting to serve your client, and you want those values and that emotional intelligence to come out in your prompt engineering and then in your output. And so it requires a bit of like self-awareness, I would say, and critical thinking. And one really great way that you can learn how to increase your emotional intelligence is simply by, when you're being self aware, is to label what those emotions are. A lot of therapists will use like a emotional wheel. I used a book by Richard Rudd called Gene Keys. He didn't really necessarily write it for emotional intelligence, but that's what I used it for, so that I could go a little bit deeper than just the surface level words that were on an emotions wheel. And then I input that information into the content itself and into the prompt engineering.
Well, that's um, probably the biggest thing that we do is we're almost like psychological detectives.
You have to
You know,
be, right?
I mean, you got to find out, what motivates people, what their pain points are,
Uh-huh.
things like that.
Mhm.
One of the things I've been playing around with this past year is linguistics or linguistic frameworks,
Uh-huh. Very cool.
because uh, a lot of the content that I would get would be kind of like, after a while you could tell it was AI generated.
Right.
So I started playing with linguistic frameworks. Like one is the dependency of grammar framework,
Okay.
which looks at the dependency of words and their relationships to each other. And I started seeing that I would get uh, much better output,
Nice.
better responses.
Okay.
But then just last week, I said, I wonder if there's other grammar frameworks that
Yeah.
we can use. And I discovered all these other frameworks. So,
Great.
I started writing a little bit about them, but really interesting stuff, the linguistic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very cool.
look at my notes here.
Sure.
Ah, your quantum business framework.
Yes.
You'd mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear the word quantum, I think of the movie Ant-Man
Okay. Nice.
and Quantumania,
Okay.
and that whole. Why don't you explain, first of all, in as simple as English as possible. Explain quantum to
Right.
people, and then explain your framework,
Right.
because
Okay.
quantum computing and all that is right around the corner,
Yeah.
and
We're getting close.
interesting stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So the simplest version, binary is 2 and quantum is more than 2.
The ability to be more than 2 and then be in more than one place at a time.
Yes, it's timeless.
That's
It's a
that's
timeless business strategy.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, what when we use the word evergreen,
Right. It is
it
self-sustaining. They're principles of that we would see in quantum science and in quantum computing applied to business. And I break them down very simply depending on if it's necessary. Like I often don't even use the language when I'm talking to clients. I just speak in plain language,
you have
Oh,
to.
yeah. The quantum business framework is for my own self as being a nerd. So I look at 8 different aspects of the business and use design thinking to go through each of those and audit and see where those gaps are, and the needs and pain points of the business. Because I found, a lot of them will hire you for marketing, do my email marketing, and then you'll be like, so what's your business model? And they have no idea what their business model is. If you've ever heard of a business model canvas, it's great. You can find free ones on HubSpot or Canva or all over the internet. And you
Yes.
fill it out and you get visceral clarity, because as a business owner, you need to have visceral clarity about what your business is. And as it evolves, like if you want to scale it, for example, you still have to have visceral clarity of that foundation, right? Or if you do marketing or you do sales or any other function of a business. So with the quantum business framework, we look at those 8 aspects that you can essentially find on a business model canvas and make sure that all of that is clear before we go and pivot into product development and move away from being a service-based business or whatever it is, that come up with an exit strategy. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
hold on here first. We need to make sure we have clarity of the business before we do that.
Yeah. I've found that some of my clients have a bit of an identity crisis.
Yeah.
They like, I'll ask them, like, what kind of business are you in?
Yeah.
And like 1 week it's this, and 1 week, and they don't have that strategic, or not, I shouldn't say strategic, but focused, finely tuned idea of who they are and their business identity. I think actually a lot of it is who your ideal customer is.
Right.
That has got to play a huge role in defining, who you are as a business.
Right. Yeah.
And when you ask somebody the question, who's your ideal customer, and the lights are out and nobody's home, that tells you a lot right there. So when did you write your book?
The strategic laziness, I wrote that last September.
What was that like?
The process of it, it was kind of just an externalization of these things that I've been thinking about and writing about in fiction work for a very long time, actually. I've written 10 fiction books since 2013. And so they were explorations of these quantum principles. And so it was just I kind of batch write, just like I do when I'm working for clients. I just sat down and wrote it, and it took me a couple of weeks. It's just a little 20,000 word book. Some people, that's like 4 blog posts. So it was very fun to do. And then I did use ChatGPT to create an outline to riff off of that, like as a collaborative partner. But all of those phrases and all of the information is coming from think my knowledge base and things that I've experienced in the past decade or so.
It's funny that you mentioned that somebody's blog post can be used for a book.
Yeah.
One of my very first clients, she wanted to create, a lead magnet. And
Mm.
I said, well, what kind of blog do you have? And she'd been writing her blog for 15 years.
Oh.
And she had a ton of stuff.
Oh. Yeah.
And we were able to come up with a 250-page book.
Wow.
Just I took all her stuff, analyzed it with AI,
Mm-hmm.
segmented it into chapters,
Right. Grouped it. Right.
grouped it,
Yeah.
and then put together the book. I used a tool called Designer.
Okay. Very cool.
Took her whole book, put graphics and all that stuff, but voila, you got a book.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't realize and that's the other thing too. How much content repurposing do you do? Like, do you use it a lot, or
For myself or for
clients or yourself?
That is a good question. I would say I've probably been using the same content or subject matter since about 2015. So for my own business, it's a lot of repurposing or writing it in a different way to reach a different audience, like testing. And then for clients, I track everything and put all of it in like a Notion or Airtable. Like if they, I usually use what tool that they're using for project management.
Are you a Notion geek?
I am not as much as I would like to be.
Oh my God.
It is
I went down
complex.
the Notion rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to get out.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have Notion table upon Notion table, but it's great. It's a great tool for everyone, for my audience out there, for organizing. I'm getting ready to do a product launch, and
Right.
it's a great way to organize stuff.
Yeah.
And with all the writing that I have to do and all the content creation that I have to do, I'm actually creating a course on prompt engineering.
Nice. Okay.
Simple framework that people can use, called the CLEAR framework. It's an acronym.
Right. Very nice.
Keep it simple and something, easy for people to learn.
Right.
So they don't get frustrated. But, Notion's great. It's and it's got AI embedded in it as well. It's actually using ChatGPT's link to it, I guess. So,
right.
It's a great tool.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, like, how do you balance creativity with like the data-driven side of this business?
I would say that the data is actually where I focus the creativity. Like the data is what I use for the container itself, because that's how I know where the messaging, for example, for your marketing and sales, like where it's resonating. And then I'll focus more on that. So we were talking about the content repurposing. I think that just like you need to make sure that your logo is getting in front of people to subconsciously communicate to them. I think that your messaging, so repurposing content that's actually doing well, that people are engaging with, that is getting you more impressions and reach on social media, that's resonating, and that's causing, conversions, causing people to purchase whatever your offerings are. That's where you want to keep drilling into that data that's showing up and saying, this is really resonating with your ideal client. So having that idea of your ideal client and then taking it a step further and then creating content that resonates with them, that's the collapsing of the quantum wave. If you don't collapse it, there's never going to be an observation effect. There's never going to be any direction that your business can go in, because you're really just stuck in entropy. You're not focusing your intention on the data that's resonating and then the content that's really working, and using your creativity to place it in those specific areas, if that makes sense.
There was a interview I did with Leslie Walsh,
Okay.
and they created their own AI. It's a branding AI.
Okay. Cool.
Okay,
Hmm.
and creatives, and they can actually drill down, like super drill down into the creative itself.
Hmm.
So that, and they were the campaigns they were doing were like for Deutsche Bank, like some big wig companies, and
Right.
I have to admit some of it went over my head, but they created this really cool AI tool to look at, how, like they learned that golfers, because they handle the PGA Tour,
Okay. Hmm.
professional golfers are really into classic cars.
Okay.
I wouldn't know that, but from
Yeah, me
their
neither.
data from their data analysis, they were able to determine that,
Huh.
and they used that in their marketing campaigns. So really cool. There's some really cool uses of AI right now. I
Yeah, that
mean,
is
just
neat.
amazing. So
Hmm.
where do you see AI like going with our business in the next 3 to 5 years?
I see, like right now, I mean, I'm literally going to go to a workshop next week and learn about how to create an AI agent. And if you're not familiar with it, what AI agents are, you could think of it as having a part-time VA who you're giving the tasks to and saying, "Hey, I need you to do these particular tasks." And so you can have your AI agent essentially delegate a task to them, and have 5 or 6 agents that will do all of the marketing for me, so I don't have to do that. So
Strategic laziness.
strategic laziness, right? And if you're doing it with intention and you still have the human element to it,
Hmm.
right? Then that's, I think, where that sweet spot is. I'm not just setting it and forgetting it. I'm looking at it from end to end and supporting it through that self-sustaining process, and using it more consciously so that I'm still converting, because the goal is actually to increase conversions and not to have your leads drop off in the middle of your customer journey.
Yeah, agents are really big right now, and I've seen some really um, you know unusual applications of agents. Like
Hmm.
I interviewed a guy named TJ Walker, and he is partnered with a company called Delphi AI,
Okay.
and they literally created it. Scared the crap out of me.
Oh.
A a clone of himself, a video clone of
Oh yeah,
himself.
I've seen those. Yeah.
Seen this?
Yeah.
It was wild. He's been an author, speaker, lecturer for like 25 years, and basically what they did was they took all of his accumulated knowledge, all his
Oh.
YouTube videos, all his training courses, all his stuff. It gets plugged into this clone,
Hmm.
and I literally on camera had a conversation with this clone, and it was
Really?
yeah.
Oh.
I was I was asking it questions like, I asked it a question. I really struggle with time management.
Yeah.
And this particular clone was devised as a coach.
Okay.
So it said, well, when we're considering time management, here are some of the elements. And it was talking to me just like him, who I was just talking to 2 seconds before. It was really,
Wow.
so agents, and especially with what we do, you know, to have somebody that knows your brand voice, your thought process, it's almost like having a clone of you,
Hmm.
where, you can plug stuff in there.
Hmm.
So where's the workshop? Is it an online workshop?
Yes, this is going to be through the UX Writing Hub.
Okay.
Hmm.
I saw you did a podcast on there too.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So pretty cool. So I'm going to give you the last 5 minutes here if people want to reach out to you and find you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. Yeah. So if you want to find my podcast, it's thequantumceo.com. And it's on YouTube and across all the channels. And then my website is deidorable.com. And you can find all the info about my consulting and coaching I customize the work that I do with each and every client. So, but really what I think that people can find from working with me is getting the business clarity that they already know that they have so that they can scale.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Once I started to really clarify where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, things have really like started
Walked into
to,
place, right?
yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like that vision,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I actually didn't use AI to do that. I started a written journal.
Right.
I
Yeah.
went old school and started writing down stuff like, this is where I want to be in 5 years. This is, what I want my business to look like. Here's my ideal customer,
Mm-hmm.
and really helps to focus. So it sounds like, and you help people transform. I noticed you talk about the transformative nature of your work,
Mm-hmm.
and that's so important. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on to my show. Yeah,
Thank
you've
you.
been a phenomenal guest, and you've kept me laughing.
Good.
And you're Deidorable.
Thank
So,
you. Appreciate it, Keith.
uh,